Thank you everybody to attending today's Accountability Board meeting. Just want to do a quick round the table because for people who might be watching at home, I'm Caroline Henry, the Police and Crime Commissioner.
Michelle Butcher, Chief Executive and Monitoring Officer of the OPCC.
Dan Howett, Head of Strategy and Performance for the OPCC.
Sandra Coleman, Executive Assistant.
Mark Kimberley, Chief Financial Officer for the Chief Constable.
Kate Mennell, Chief Constable.
And Stephen O'Neill, Chief Inspector for the Prevention Hub.
Thank you. We have apologies today from Gillian, CFO, because she's not very well. So moving on to item 2, which is the minutes and actions of the previous meeting. I've had a good check through. I'm happy. It's a true reflection of last time's meeting. I think all the actions have been sorted. So I'm happy to move on from there. Everyone in agreement with that?
Yep.
Great. So the item for today's public agenda is a presentation from Chief Inspector Stephen O'Neill talking about preventing and steering vulnerable young people away from crime. So I go pass across to you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Dan, are you going to be okay to click through the slides?
Might be a slight lag, but we'll try.
Yeah, no problem at all. So if you move on to the first one, please, for me. So the first slide is an acknowledgement, really, of how important this area of prevention and early intervention is. So I wanted to acknowledge that prevention and early intervention is your number one priority, Commissioner, in your police and crime plan. In addition, Chief, I wanted to acknowledge that there's some really clear messaging around our vision of delivering an outstanding service that we can all be proud of, and that we're committed to prioritising preventative approaches that divert people away from crime, with a particular focus on children and young people. Plus, as part of our duty, we must protect vulnerable people, ensure that our communities are safe and listened to. So consequently, our engagement and citizens in policing team, which are now managed under the Prevention Hub, are dedicated to early intervention and fostering positive relationship with young people. We do that through various initiatives. We do that through our mini-police approach, through schools officers, through our youth outreach and through police cadets. By doing all those different approaches, we obviously hope to develop meaningful engagement with young people and then actively steer them away from crime. By engaging directly with schools and the community, we aim to build trust, provide guidance and create a supportive environment that empowers young people to make positive choices and contribute to a safer society. Dan, if you could move us to the next slide. This one is an overview of our different teams in the Prevention Hub who all contribute towards this area of business. What I'd like to do is start to discuss them team by team. So I'll start with mini police. So bottom left hand corner is a fantastic picture of our mini police, and normally that gets a bit of a I don't look cute. So I'll talk through that.
No, past that stage, sorry.
So
if it was a dog, I'd be excited.
I think there is one there.
Oh yeah, actually there is. Oh, the dog's cute.
So we've this year we've strengthened and better coordinated our mini police approach, which is a fantastic way of engaging with young people at an early age and helping to change behaviour. We've got a new 12-week standardised programme that's been created for all participating schools, and that is delivered by local PCSOs. I think it's really important to note that it's the local PCSOs, those role models in the community that are actually visible on a day-to-day basis, who are going to the schools and delivering this. But Prevention Hub are the ones coordinating the approach.
And I know there's been some real targeting on what schools you wanted to do that in, hasn't they?
Absolutely, yeah. So we target our activity in areas of low trust and confidence in the police and in areas of high diversity.
Yeah.
We're currently engaged with the whole of year group in 12 schools, and we reach approximately 650 students at the moment.
Yeah.
So we've got a real good reach. Our underrepresented breakdown ranges from 40% to 93% in those different schools that are taking part of it as well. The programme is developed to year 5, which is 9 and 10 year olds. It focuses on crime and ASB whilst instilling values of kindness, respect and inclusivity as well. In the report that I produced, there's a proper lesson plan of all the 12 weeks in the programme. But in particular, there are topics on conflict resolution, anti-bullying, cyber safety, drug and substance misuse and abuse. Over the next few months, we're going to review the programme, because obviously we've had this developed this year, so we're going to review the programme for this year, meet with the schools, meet with the PCSOs, and then develop that feedback and develop the programme better for next year. We've got far more PCSOs coming forward now, so we've done a bit of a campaign with our local policing teams. So lots more PCSOs wanting to be trained, and our aspiration is to grow that, because obviously we're in 12 schools, but we want to be much more. To recognise the contribution of the students who are doing mini police, we're organising 4 fun activity days at the end of this year as well. So we've got 2 in June and 2 in July.
Are they here or?
They're going to be out at various locations to serve the community. So, so that's mini police. I'll move on to our schools and early intervention officers. So we've got one of our schools and early intervention officers on there. That was a recent press article that we did. Just obviously promoting the officer. So we've got 13 schools early intervention officers across the force. They're in all schools, colleges and APs. They've got access to education sessions on diverse topics including knife crime, VORG, hate crime, CCE, CSE, etc. Plus they can create bespoke packages where applicable as well. The SIUs are involved in careers events as well, so promoting Nottinghamshire Police to all members of the community. They help to educate and engage young people daily. They help to build trust and confidence in policing, and they also provide some low-level interventions that deter young people away from crime.
Yeah.
The delivery of weapons guidance in the educational setting is one of our priorities, and recently revised our approach there as well. So we've developed really strong partnerships with the VRP, with Access to Learning, with Youth Justice, with the DSLs at schools, and with Nottingham City Safeguarding Children's Partnership. And we've jointly created the Universal Knife Crime Education Package. That's now delivered in schools by school staff in years 6, 7 and 10 throughout the whole county. I've got a couple of those guidance documents just to pass around.
It's a bit Blue Peter this, isn't it? Here's one I did earlier. Thank you. Yeah, and DSLs, for those who are watching, is Designated Safeguarding Leads. Yeah.
So this universal guidance replaces all previous document interventions that we did before. So it gives us that much needed consistency of delivery.
Yeah. It's also noted that you've got the National Justice Museum on there.
That's right.
They've got the fantastic Ben Kinsella exhibition, which I know the VRP and Nottinghamshire Police were really involved with putting together, and they're doing some new filming for that, aren't they? To get a more current Nottingham-based story.
Yeah, so when we break down the SEIO lesson plans in particular, you mentioned Ben Kinsella Trust, because they produce the best lesson plan, so this is a choice and consequences one. That this is a lesson plan for all teachers, youth workers and other practitioners, and this is about knife crime, choice and consequences as well. So I'll leave that there if anyone wants to have a look.
It's a really powerful exhibition, and I've been around recently and seen how they do it for different levels as well. And it's not something you can just go and turn up at. You have to book through your school, or Youth Justice take people down there as well, don't they?
Yeah, and our SEIOs are all trained as well, so they can take small down as well.
Yeah, it would definitely make you think twice about holding a knife.
Yeah. Just to continue on, our SAOs track all their engagement activity in the schools as well. They track it on an engagement capture spreadsheet which was developed by the Prevention Hub. Some of the highlights include we've had over 350 in-person engagements in the recent quarter. 325 of those engagements are focused on one of the following subjects, so either crime or violence prevention, knife crime, drugs and alcohol, education, reassurance, problem solving. Those sessions range from one-to-one sessions in schools to whole year group sessions, with over 100 people. The approximate number of people that we've reached this year have been 4,000, so that's 4,000 students that have had some input by the SEIOs. In addition to that, our neighbourhood policing teams have also been into schools and done some additional work, and they've reached over 2,000 students as well. Obviously our SEIOs are involved in things like Safety Zone, which I know was mentioned at one of the previous accountability boards. The Ben Kinsella Trust, which you've already mentioned, and they do get involved in OPSEPTA as well. Yeah. So they do some pre-planned weapon sweeps as well for OPSEPTA. So moving on to cadets. So the cadets are the bottom right there. So that's one of the attestation events for the cadets. So we're working really hard with our wider communities to promote opportunities for both police cadets and for volunteer police cadet leaders. Our cadet programme, I think, is going from strength to strength. We've got it in a really healthy place. In terms of both numbers and diversity. We currently operate 5 junior sessions, which is academic years 7 to 11, and 2 senior cadet sessions, which is academic years 12 and 13, and we run those events every week. An important addition this year was adding in the
cadet sessions at Hyson Green, which have got a
Yeah.
really strong link to the MBLC, which is the majority of black-led churches, and they support a great number of black children entering into the programme. We've currently got a total of 107 cadets in our cohort at the moment.
Yeah.
Our cadet programme is consistently delivered across all bases, and it's a mixture of both police and skills-based activities and sessions. We have guest speakers and visits
Yeah.
as well, which is always...
I have been a guest speaker. We had a bit of a funny moment because I'm old and nobody knew what foxtrot stood for, so I got the kids doing slow, slow, quick, quick, slow. There was an appetite to have a cadet base at Newark, but I think you were trying to look for volunteer leaders. I don't know if that's still an opportunity.
Yeah, this is still the opportunity that we need. We, as I said before, we are dependent on encouraging more volunteers. It's the way to unlock either building additional, either putting on additional bases in some of the areas of the county, or in doing additional sessions at our current bases.
Yeah.
But it's all about that plea to get additional volunteers. So in terms of focus of topics, we do topics on Black History Month, on mental health, on well-being. It's not just about the police issues and topics.
Yeah.
The overall aim is to reduce likelihood of cadets becoming victims of high harm offences themselves, and improving their overall personal safety. And it's also hoped that their knowledge and understanding has that ripple effect as well, so they go back, share with friends and family their schools
In the wider community.
Yeah. Just for clarity, you weren't teaching kids how to ballroom dance, it was going through the phonetic alphabet. That's why you did the foxtrot.
Our cadets also get involved in test purchasing operations, which is really interesting. So mainly involving knives and fireworks. They've recently been involved in supporting some of the shop kind initiatives at recent Safer Business Action Days, which assist.
I saw them out in Mansfield.
In fact, you did, yeah. You were walking around the centre with them, weren't you? So I remember that. So that helps assist, combating retail and business crime in some of our hotspot locations as well.
They enjoyed engaging.
They do, yeah. I think that day in particular probably was a bit flat. It was the end of the day, wasn't it? There wasn't a lot of people around, but I know that
they're really smart and talking to people.
Yeah.
And it's good, and it's just learning skills, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. Our cadet sessions then are run by volunteer leaders from across the organisation, and they're supported by our SEIOs and youth outreach staff. In terms of volunteers, so obviously that's a picture of the volunteers top left. We're engaging within the community to promote volunteering opportunities by attending careers fairs, engagement events, places of worship. We have police support and cadet leader volunteers, and they give up their free time to enhance the work of officers and staff, which obviously allows them to focus on core policing duties. So in essence it means more officers on the street and improved community support if we can increase our volunteer cohort.
There's some legendary volunteers. I went to the volunteer awards.
Yeah, so that's something we did on the 13th of February. We had that opportunity to recognise the achievements of our volunteers at that awards ceremony.
So there's some fantastic awards given out on that night. We currently have 82 volunteers, including volunteer cadet leaders, of which we've got 17 of them, and we have our police chaplains as well, they're including the volunteer numbers. Whilst numbers have declined a bit since the pandemic peak, the total hours worked within the organisation is the highest it's been since 2019. So in the last quarter, our volunteers contributed to 2,727 hours. So it's phenomenal achievement, isn't it? And as I say, that means that the officers and staff have been able to concentrate on their roles a bit further.
And just to be clear, is that including specials or is special?
No, this is just
volunteers. Yeah.
Moving on to the top centre picture, so that's our youth outreach team.
I recognise the team.
So they work on a one-to-one basis with young people aged between 8 and 16 who are either vulnerable, socially excluded, involved in or at the risk of crime. This team tends to pick up individuals that wouldn't engage in a more formal uniformed programme like the cadets. Our current year-to-date number of referrals is 38. We've currently got 19 young people that are engaged in a one-to-one programme with our 2 youth outreach workers.
So there's 2 youth outreach workers, then you've got apprentices, what I mean.
That's correct, yes. Yep. So since the scheme began, our youth outreach workers have worked with over 200 individuals on a one-to-one basis. In total, there's been over 13,500 people engaged through events, through one-to-ones, events, competitions or programmes, so they've got a massive reach. The overall aim of the team is to divert young people away from crime, obviously subject matter here, including getting them back into educational training,
Yeah.
reducing missing episodes, reducing involvement in police incidents, as well as improving overall trust and confidence in police. Like some of the other schemes, we prioritise young people who
To us from underrepresented communities as well.
Yeah.
In terms of events, the team are very engaged. They plan events for Black History Month, for Stephen Lawrence Day. They planned and delivered a knife crime event as well recently. The Prevention Hub are committed to a longer term strategic delivery of that knife crime event, and we're going to increase that to 2 events per year as well.
Yeah.
All that engagement is aimed at increasing engagement, opportunity with young people, helping to build trust and confidence, offering support and guidance, and then helping to deter young people away from crime. The recent knife crime event they organised was at Baseford site of Nottingham College. That was attended by over 200 children.
Yeah.
They heard from various inspirational speakers
Yeah.
who've been touched by knife crime in the past as well. So as I say, we want to develop that and run with more events per year. Fast approaching, so the 27th of April we see the Live Our Best Lives Award, and that's something that the Youth Outreach team also organise. That offers reward and recognition to young people aged between 8 and 18 who've done something inspirational and acted as role models in the community. In addition to delivering one-to-one and events, the team also work with partners to maximise funding opportunities to deliver locally based interventions. So working with funding from the VRP last year, we put on 2 additional 12-week programmes, which allowed us to just push that scope a little bit more.
Yeah.
Rather than just doing one-to-one, we're able to open it up to group sessions as well.
Yeah.
So we had 2 12-week programmes aimed at developing better outcomes for young people.
again targeting the same vulnerable, socially excluded backgrounds. So we got a much larger engagement from that. That programme involved knife crime, personal safety, cyber security, etc. We are looking at planning 3 more events over the next 12 months as well, so we're using some of the funding that we're obtaining from the Home Office in terms of ASB and serious violence, so the Hotspot Fund, and we're going to put on 3 more programmes in the areas that are worst affected. Not a picture on there, but what I wanted to mention was the youth intervention section. So we wanted to take the opportunity to update on changes that have been made in the youth justice arena. So currently first time entrance into the criminal justice arena in the city is far too high, very high.
It has been for a long time, hasn't it?
Yeah, and is higher than the average in the county as well.
Yeah.
So to improve that consistency in police decision making and information sharing, the Force Youth Justice Service are being moved from a city-county model, city and IOM, to a thematic model covering the whole force.
Okay.
So to reflect a change in approach from procedural justice as well to prevention methodology by interventions, the team are going to be renamed a Youth Intervention Section,
Yeah.
and that landed on the 1st of April. So it's expected that we'll be able to provide better and consistent decision making as a result of doing that regarding outcomes, with a focus on diversionary work to reduce the FTEs, the first time entrants, and reduce future crime and harm in the communities. So in the longer term, what that means is we'll influence better alignment of city and county youth justice, and we'll provide a more consistent approach.
Just on that, Commissioner, you'll recall last week's local criminal justice
I do.
partnership meeting. There was discussion in relation to this very topic, and I took an action away from that to speak to those from Youth Justice Services to see what we can do to work together. So I think it'd be good to involve the force in those discussions in relation to the new youth intervention section. I think would be part of those discussions. Steve, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Next slide, please, Dan. So I've probably mentioned much of this already, but these are just some of the events and recognition that we get involved in. So we've got, top right was a picture from Up Polarise, which was a joint initiative with the city, local policing team and Youth Outreach, where we took people ice skating, and it also gave us an opportunity to obviously discuss some of these issues, but in a
more familiar setting. So that was a real good opportunity. Made it easier to get across the key messages around such issues like knife crime, CSE, etc. Kick-off in 3 is the middle one there. That's something that we're planning at the moment. So we're looking at in a weekend in June to have a kick-off in 3 event. That's a national event. We'll be opening it up now, trying to get lots of teams to come and play football, both obviously boys and girls.
Clifton, I think, last time, didn't it?
Yeah, so we're looking at the moment, we've not finalised it, but we're looking at Gresham, so down at Rushcliffe is the ideal location for that this year. So my team are just planning that at the present. Obviously we mentioned Live Our Best Lives Award. The bottom right is the knife crime event at the Baseford College that I mentioned before, which is obviously Superintendent Craner doing a speech to the 200 or so participants there. The one on the right hand side is a recent cadet familiarisation visit that took place at headquarters, and that was done during the school holidays to keep some momentum and keep some interventions there. And then the bottom left was part of the volunteer appreciation award.
And I think those two cadets are special sheriff cadets, aren't they?
They are, yeah.
Right for the High Sheriff.
Yeah.
And Dan, I recognise.
Next slide, please, Dan. So it's quite busy, this slide, but it was just a summary slide, really. So in summary, Commissioner, I want to take the opportunity to reassure you that our approach to early intervention and steering young people away from crime is in good shape. All the teams mentioned that are primarily set up, that I've mentioned already, all, and the youth justice, all come under the same command now, so it all forms part of the prevention hub. So that brings with it great opportunities to improve integration with operational teams, increase the governance and the supervisory oversight. Lots of work's taken place this year to ensure that all our provision is professionally presented, trained, everyone's equipped to do their jobs properly, they've all got the necessary safeguarding qualifications as well. The hub also now benefits from its own dedicated comms cell. So in terms of our events, they're all managed and promoted by a dedicated resource as well. And we're just taking on some new people in that comms cell, so we're making some real progress there. I've got a performance indicator on there. I'm not suggesting we are excellent. That's just the first one I got.
That's what we're aiming for.
But our performance is tracked through departmental meetings, then fed up into the force board structure that our chief officers lead on. So obviously our engagement discussions are then discussed at the strategic engagement board, knife crime discussed through the strategic knife crime meeting, etc. In terms of consistency, I've put consistency as key up there. We've now got a consistent approach where hitherto that wasn't in place. For example, I've already mentioned them, but we've got the consistent packages delivered to all schools on knife crime. We've got a consistent mini police package that's delivered through all our schools, whereas before that was very ad hoc. We've got this revised model for youth intervention section, meaning we've got another good example of better and more consistent decision making. I've got a thing for partnerships up there as well, so I mention this because it's clear that our approach isn't just a police approach, it's obviously a partnership approach. We don't work in silo. We've mentioned a number of partners we're already engaged with, Ben Kinsella Trust, the VRP. Every opportunity we involve our partnership in decisions.
Because that's the Youth Commission, which I commissioned through my office at the bottom.
The bottom, yeah. It is. So, yeah.
And Gabby, I recognise on the right.
So what I want to say there is that we are. That's probably the most important thing for me. That we all our new ideas and things we are testing that. So I'm the link into the Youth IAG. So I'm working with your team to develop that further. And we invite the Youth Commission in to have a look at some of our lesson plans as well when we think about making changes. They come in, they've done that recently as well. So
they're so bright. I went to an event with them recently, and they were looking at interactive ways to engage in schools, and they just broke up into table minutes. It would have took. They just came up with these fantastic ideas. So definitely worth listening to.
And I've got the way forward. The way forward, really, just reassure you, we are responsive to change. We're always reviewing the information and adapting as required. We're making review decisions using evidence-based practice. We are part of the prevention hub, and problem solving is one of our main themes that runs throughout everything we do. I've mentioned lots of figures already. We're not just focused on figures. We look at that qualitative data as well. So in particular for our youth outreach work and the approach there, we use Rosenberg's self-esteem scale, so we speak to the children when we start the programme, make sure we can benchmark where they are, where they feel they are, and then through the programme we try to develop that as well. So that was all I had for you. The next slide was an any questions slide.
I'm going to jump in and run straight away if that's okay. An area where young people I think are very vulnerable is when it gets towards school exclusions. How is the force working with partner agencies more broadly in this area, particularly supporting the long-term public health approach?
Yes, I think I've probably covered some of this already, but the force works really closely with the VRP.
Yeah.
So we ensure that all the work that we do is joined up. So, for example, the VRP attend the force knife crime strategic meetings chaired by ACC Griffin. The last meeting was on the 12th of April, which I attended, and obviously the VRP were there as well. And then the VRP were the ACC Griffin attends the Strategic Violence Reduction Board as well. So each
Got one next week.
Yeah, each community safety partnership now produce their serious violence duty delivery plans as well, which look to understand the serious violence for the area and how the partnership works together. So it's a true partnership approach. In addition to that, an inspector on my team is the point of contact for Natalie and the VRP to link in with when we're addressing things like school absences, because I know that's specifically mentioned.
It is a worry, the amount of school absences. Any more digging in on that one?
Not on that one.
Yeah. Do you want to take question B, Michelle?
Yes, sure.
Thank you.
So what action, Steve, has the force taken to address areas of concern that are highlighted as part of the County Youth Justice Inspection, relating to policing specifically, obviously?
Okay, so there were two recommendations to the police. One was
Yeah.
surrounding the deployment of officers, and the second relating to the monitoring of use of out-of-court disposals. First recommendation, question the use of civilian officers and not warranted PCs in the role, due to the perceived benefits of having a warranted officer over a member of staff. But at the time, what the report failed to note was that the two civilian officers we had in that post were ex-police officers with 30-year service each,
Yeah.
and 10 years of experience working in the youth justice sector. So those members of staff have got the best knowledge and understanding of working with young people, and probably more effective than any experienced PC would be.
Yeah.
There was no guidance or policy that mandated it must be a warranted officer, but that was just picked up in the report. National guidance has since been released since the inspection that says a PC should issue any out-of-court disposals. So we're naturally making some changes in our team to make sure that does take place. As I've already mentioned, to meet the challenges of youth justice, we've made those changes for the team as well, so I won't go over that again. The police sit on a joint out-of-court disposal review group. It's currently developing a joint protocol for out-of-court disposals, which is going to be based on new outcomes framework as well, including outcome 22. And at present, we're still waiting for final Home Office sign-off on the new outcomes framework to come.
But we'll be introducing an internal review process for outcome decisions to make sure there's a consistent approach as well. And that will be shared with City and County Youth Justice panels for their consideration. And just final note is the final outcome disposal is a panel decision, not a police decision.
Yeah. Thank you. What impact have changes in the force policy concerning knife crime possession had on the number of children and young people entering the youth justice system, particularly in the city, and what risk and opportunities has the policy change brought about? Because you've changed the policy, haven't you?
Yeah, so we revised the force policy in October 23,
Yeah.
and that was to reflect the NPCC national guidance on response to knife and weapons crime. So our policy now fully aligns with the processes of the NPCC national guidance. So any young person carrying a knife or weapon without reasonable excuse will mean its entry into the CJ system for them. The carrying of a weapon in public places, obviously potential impact is massive and significant harm to public safety, especially around young people.
Yeah.
So the effects of use of weapons by young people have been highlighted both locally and nationally in recent years. So there was obviously this need to look at the policy again. This new national policy is intended to reflect the seriousness of knife and weapon-enabled crime and young people and reduce significant harm within the community. Weapon carriage appears to be more prevalent in the city than the county, therefore the city are affected. But the change in policy now allows for 15 years and younger to now be bailed for 28 days whilst the investigation continues, and that's a change from the previous policy where people remained in custody while charges were sought. This allows for a young person's time in custody to be reduced and therefore reduce custody-related trauma as well, which is an important area. So within our local practices, we share information of any arrested young person with youth justice services and with the MASH, and that allows some immediate partnership support and interventions with that young person. And this is a significant change in the policy and one developed to improve child welfare overall and the interventions.
I suppose, what's the impact on the sense of deterrence though, Steve? Have you seen that in relation to the bringing in of the force policy? The point I'm making is in terms of the severity.
We've obviously gone out and said we've got a new policy, and that's been documented and publicised. So I don't have the figures on whether that's made a difference in the deterrence or not.
Yeah.
And that's something.
I think one of the main.
I
think one of the main reasons for the changes around the keeping them in custody whilst we await a decision. It gives and that was. Despite the need for that deterrent, it was having some negative impacts, and by changing our approach, it gives us a longer time to look at what we can do in the meantime in terms of interventions as well. So I think it's wider than the sort of simple deterrent part of it. I think it's to try and it's to try and minimise the impact of being in custody can have while still maintaining the important process of the criminal justice system.
Yeah. Thank you. We've got a question from a member of the public, John from Nottingham. My two questions are concerning gun and knife amnesties. I appreciate there's a lot of work involved. How often are these amnesties put in place? Could they not be implemented on a permanent basis?
So I'll take this one, Commissioner, if that's okay. So we have undertaken gun amnesties in the past, and we tend to use that when we have intelligence or incidents that necessitate the need for gun amnesties. And we're continually monitoring that to make sure that as and when we need to do them, we can. Where viable gun discharges are now at a historically low level for Nottinghamshire, which is good news. We've got robust structures in place internally and externally with partners in order to tackle gun crime. So we are seeing some results, but we recognise that amnesties are part of that, but at the moment we don't see that there's a need for them. But that obviously we'll keep monitoring that. In relation to knife amnesties, we have a number of bins, knife bins that are put in place around Operation Sceptre, and Chief Inspector O'Neill's already spoken about that. That's the initiative around knife crime that takes place every year in May and November. But we do have amnesty bins all year round at Newark, Mansfield, Radford Road and Oxclose Lane Police Station.
All year?
Yeah, so that gives people the opportunity to dispose of knives at those locations.
Perhaps do a bit more promotion on that.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there any more questions in this first section?
I've got one, I think. So it's in terms of assessing impact, I guess, of the interventions and the work with children and young people. So you mentioned towards the end of the presentation there the Rosenberg self-esteem model that's being used for some of that targeted work and assessing the impact there. And it's sort of a broader question about the universal work that's being done. So the SIOs that have had fantastic reach in terms of thousands of students reach. How do we know what impact, I guess, we're having in those areas?
It's an ongoing thing. So every year, as I said, at the end of the school years, we obviously contact the schools, we work with them, we do surveys on individuals as well, and we just collate that information and then try to develop it over the summer months so that we go back in September with a developed new package. So we are constantly looking at opportunities to feedback, using the Youth Commission and the current provider, Leaders Unlocked, to give us some more information there as well.
And with our work that we're doing in relation to our HMI CFRS recommendations, we are looking at performance framework in relation to that and the necessity for more, using that sort of qualitative data to support what we're doing. And obviously we'll be reviewing a whole of our performance data, and some of that will.
And we've started that already, Chief, in our own team. So we've got a database where we're looking at all that information and collating it all.
And I had exactly the same question, because it's really difficult to demonstrate the preventive, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Apart from reduced crime and incident levels. But I think some more of that qualitative data would be useful to come to this accountability board. Like case studies, I think brings the point to life really, in terms of those individuals that have been prevented from going a criminal justice route, I suppose, would be good.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's the early intervention and not knowing what you've stopped happening, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So moving on from that then, I'm just going to ask Michelle to do a quick update on the College of Policing review into Nottinghamshire Police's handling of the Valdo Colkane case.
Yes, well, Commissioner, first of all, I think you wanted this clearly in the public item of your accountability board, so that it's a standing item as we go through, although it's recognised that there won't be something to report every month at accountability board. But you commissioned at the end of January, 30th of January, where you announced the commission of a College of Policing independent review into Nottinghamshire Police's handling of the Valdo Colkane case, 13th of June 2013. And the college and this office have been scoping what that work will consist of. So since the 30th of January, just to report here that the work has been going on, key officers, lead officers in the college, to work out how the review is going to work, how it's going to be supported by the force in terms of information and access to officers and staff, etc. And importantly, you capturing the concerns of the bereaved families and the victims. You've met with most of them now, the most recent meeting being on the 25th of March. So the terms of reference for the college, they have been developing. They're almost at a stage now where they're ready to provide those to you as part of the commission to publish, and for them to publish as an independent and external review. They've also been working with the Independent Office for Police Conduct, the IOPC, who have got a live investigation going to make sure that the commission from you, the Independent College of Policing Review, does not undermine in any way the IOPC important investigations into police misconduct and complaints. So that work now is coming to fruition. About 4 weeks ago, the college reached out to the bereaved family members and victims so that they could ensure for themselves that the concerns that we've captured and passed on to the college are, to their satisfaction, captured within the terms of reference, and then they can begin their review work as soon as possible. So you're aiming really for the college to have finalised their set-up work, if you like, by next Friday, so that the review can commence, and it will take some months, and then we'll report at the end of it. It's an independent review, so the college will formulate a report, and no doubt the item will be discussed again at accountability board. So I think that's the update. It's very much a process update in a lot of senses, but hopefully that gives you some assurance that we are moving on. We know you announced it's at the end of January, but there's important foundation work to put in place as part of the commission so that the college can start their work.
Thank you for that update, Michelle. And I know the next thing I want to just speak very briefly on in this public bit of the meeting is an update on Nottinghamshire Police's response to the finding by His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and Fire and Rescue Service. I know we've been having lots of discussions on this, Chief, and you gave me an update yesterday, and we've got a lot of meetings this week and getting really busy getting ready for people. But I just think it'd be reassuring for the public just to have an overview of some of the work that you're doing.
Okay, so I think the first and the most important thing to say is that whilst disappointed to be in this position, we're determined to make sure that we learn from what's happened, that we identify the underlying causes in a systematic and sustainable way. Yeah. So that is very much our approach to this, because we're determined that we will make sure we're a stronger force as a result of what's happened. As you are aware, there are 3 causes of concern, which I don't propose to go into the details of unless you need me to. But the first one really is around our investigations and how we manage our investigations. In relation to that, so I refer to that as cause for concern 1, and we've completed all the immediate recommendations that were raised by the HMI-CFRS, and within this, it involved me allocating a dedicated team to review a number of crimes and to reassure ourselves around those crimes what work we'd done. And from that work, we can be confident that all have been allocated as supervisor, 2% of the open crimes didn't have a timely supervisor update, so that's just 2% of those, and 5.8% didn't have a victim update within 21 days, which is something we would want to reduce those numbers. But it was the reassurance we wanted to give HMIC FRS around that we were working on those crimes and that they hadn't, been neglected. So we did that piece of work. We're now in the phase of looking at the longer term recommendations that they want us to do, and in order to address that, we've got a 6-point plan to improve our investigations, which we're at the moment in the process of setting up and delivering to our members, colleagues across the organisation. Another one of the issues that was raised that I think could give you some reassurance around was around the DASU. So this is the secondary risk assessments we do around.
Do you want to explain to DASU what DASU is for the public?
Yeah, so basically it's a department that looks at when we go to an incident, we would submit a risk assessment. An officer would submit a risk assessment, high, medium or low, and that would cause a chain reaction of different interventions to be put in place. Yeah. That was happening anyway, but what we do within Nottinghamshire, we have a secondary process where we look at them and check them to check we're happy with them. And the DASU is the department that's responsible for, so it's domestic abuse support unit, they are responsible for doing that. We were aware of some backlogs within that department, and we did put some remedial measures in place straight away. We've also done additional training for staff within there, so they were able to manage their workload more effectively. And as of March, we have got on top of the backlog. There will always be a workload in there, and it sounds a little bit like semantics, but there is a difference between backlog and workload. They're always sort of working through the work, but at the moment there is no backlog in there, and we're confident. I spoke earlier about sustainable. This is a sustainable response to that, so I think that's another thing that's important to raise. Around cause of concern too, so this focus really around our planning and governance arrangements and monitoring performance, and we've already just sort of made reference to that. So we are focusing around performance, supervision and leadership in relation to this, looking at our performance frameworks, how we can improve them and how we can make sure that they start to drive business, and also making sure that we embed our vision and priorities, because really important to say that we have our vision, and our Standards Police Service can all be proud of. We have our priorities. None of this work is inconsistent with any of that. So we are still carrying on along the same direction with increased focus on certain areas, and it's important for the workforce to understand that, but also externally for the members of the public. We haven't suddenly changed what we're doing. It's around that increased focus. Of course, concern 3 is around the abstraction policy of neighbourhoods. So there was some concern that officers and staff were being abstracted to deal with other things. That's something we had already recognised was an issue. We were looking to restructure our neighbourhoods to try and reduce the impact of abstraction. We're still working through what that looks like, but we are, making sure that we have those dedicated teams and that abstraction is minimised as much as possible. It's important to remember that we, in terms of the city and the context, we have a large nighttime economy. We have, a number of football teams and sporting events that we have to police. So we've got to try and manage that and sort of work out how we're going to manage that. But we do recognise the importance of doing that, and we're working through that at the moment. In relation to all of our response, I've launched Operation Catalyst. We've got an action plan that we're pulling together now, looking at the strategic work streams I've just mentioned, and then how we're going to deliver against those. The strategic work streams we're looking at are investigations, performance, neighbourhood policing and prevention, and supervision and leadership. So I believe that if we address those, we'll not only address the causes of concern, but we'll also move the force forward in a lot of other areas as well. As you've mentioned, I've going to the Police Performance Oversight Group on the 16th of May alongside yourself and some of the senior members of the organisation, where I'll present our action plan and what we're doing to the group. So that's our opportunity to first sort of show our approach. As I've said, we are engaging with HMIC FRS. We spent a lot of time understanding the concerns. They are regularly enforced now. We're working with them to understand what we need to do. I have a dedicated team now looking at what we're, making sure we coordinate this work and we get all of that right. We've increased the number of detectives, senior detectives on division to assist with supervision and oversight of some of the investigations. That's already been put in place, so they're in place now. So that's an additional 3 detective chief inspectors. Increased supervision levels on response and front line, so to make sure that there's then that support for the front line. I think one of the really key pieces of work that we're doing, and we're really keen to follow this, is working closely with the College of Policing and the National Police Chiefs Council to identify any expertise and support that already exists, any good practice that's out there. So already That's, you know, we've been doing that with the prevention hub. We're doing it with the neighbourhood policing model, really sort of, you know, seeking support of colleagues, and that's sort of the learning that we can get from that. We're also using external consultants around some piece of work that probably we wouldn't be able to achieve quickly, so particularly around some of our IT systems and sort of transfer across from one system to another, which was probably, it wasn't going as quickly as we wanted it to, so we're now looking for external support around that. And to support all of that, we've got a strong internal and external communication plan. So this has included lots of internal briefings to leaders, senior leaders, and the wider organisation. It's important if we're going to achieve this that we've all got to be working together and understand what we've got to do and how we're going to do it. But also externally, so briefings to stakeholders. Obviously, we're doing this today. Briefing to the police and crime panel, just to sort of show where we are, and there'll be lots more sort of updates to come. But that's sort of where we are today.
Thank you so much, Stephen. That transparency of what you're doing is really important. Thank you. And hopefully the public will find that really reassuring how much you've gripped this. Thank you. So we'll move on now to the closed session of the Accountability Board. Thank you very much.